Wisconsin, Republicans pass public sector union curbs. Republicans in the Wisconsin State Senate have approved a plan to strip public sector unions of most of the collective bargaining power. I wonder whether it will be applicable in India or not. The U.S. state's 14 Democratic senators had sought to prevent the move by fleeing the state, leaving the chamber short of the number needed for a vote. But Republicans used a procedural move to allow them to vote on the measure the committee instead. Crowds of protesters swarmed the state capitol in Madison following the vote. The whole world is watching, they shouted as the police guarded the entrance to the Senate chamber. In the Senate gallery, spectators shouted, "You are cowards," as voting took place. The plan has prompted weeks of protest in support of public workers. The Republicans-controlled state assembly is due to take up in legislation on Thursday morning, after which it would go to Republicans governor Scott Walker for signature. Mr. Walker argues that move is needed to help tackle $3.6 billion budget gap over the next 2 years. But critics say it's intended to weaken the power of unions, which tend to back the Democrats in elections. Court orders Delhi to check toxic vegetables. A court in the Indian capital, Delhi, has been ordered the authorities to test vegetables for toxic substances. The government has been ordered to randomly buy vegetables from big markets and street vendors. The order came after new reports said that banned pesticides were being used in vegetables and fruits, putting the health of consumers at risk. A recent study claimed that the amount of pesticides used in India is as much as 750 times the European standards. The government has been given 5 weeks to return with its findings. TV boss Muzammil Hasan gets prison for wife's death. A New York television executive has been given the maximum sentence for between 25 years to life in prison for murdering his wife in 2009. A jury last month found Pakistan-born Muzammil Hasan guilty of stabbing Asia Hasan and beheading her 6 days after she filed for divorce. Hasan argued that she had abused him and that he had acted in self-defense. Deadly attack at Pakistan funeral procession. At least 36 people have been killed in a suicide bombing at a funeral procession in northwestern Pakistan. Officials said the funeral was for the wife of a pro-government ethnic Pashtun tribal elder in Adizai village in the troubled Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. It was being attended by many anti-Taliban militiamen in the region. At least 40 people were wounded. Afghanistan 2010, bloodiest year for a decade, UN says. There has been a large increase in the number of civilians killed in the war in Afghanistan for a second year in a row, according to a UN report. More than 2,700 civilians were killed in 2010, up 15% of the year before. The UN blamed the Taliban and other insurgents for the rise, saying 75% of all deaths were down to them. The Taliban called the report one-sided. The numbers killed by Afghan and NATO forces fell, accounting for 16% of civilian deaths, the UN found. Pakistan faces educational emergencies, says government. The Pakistani government says the country is in midst of an educational emergency with disastrous human and economic consequences. A report by a government commission found that half of all Pakistani school children cannot read a sentence. The commission found funding for schools has been cut from 2.5% of GDP in 2005 to just 1.5%, less than the national airline gets its subsidies. It described the education crisis as a self-inflicted disaster. The report says 25 million children in Pakistan do not get primary education and a right guaranteed in the country's constitution. 3 million children will never in their lives attend a lesson. Grameen founder Muhammad Yunus in final appeal. Bangladeshi Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus has launched a final appeal against his sacking as head of the Grameen Microfinance Bank he founded. The Supreme Court will hear the case next Tuesday. The central bank fired Professor Yunus last week, saying he was past retirement age and had been improperly appointed. He says the move is politically motivated. Grameen Bank pioneered micro-lending to the poor by giving small loans to millions of borrowers. The model has been replicated throughout the developing world. In a ruling on Tuesday, the High Court upheld the sacking. Scouts team to digitally scan ancient Indian landmark. One of India's most historic landmarks is to be digitally recorded by a group of Scottish experts in an effort to preserve its every detail. The team from Glasgow School of Art and Historic Scotland will scan the Rani Ki Vav Stepwell in Gujarat. The site, which dates back to year 1050, is made up of decorated stepped terraces descending into the ground. The project is part of a global program by the design team to record sites of historical significance. We'll move on to the business world. Carlos Slim, top of Forbes rich list as wealth jumps 38%. Mexico's Carlos Slim has topped the latest Forbes magazine rich list as his wealth grew by more than a third. The telecom magnate's fortune rose by $20.5 billion to $74 billion, again beating Microsoft founder Bill Gates' $56 billion into second place. More than 200 people joined the billionaires list as their numbers rose to a new record of 1,210, Forbes said. 6 billionaires connected with Facebook are now in the list, including Mark Zuckerberg and Sean Parker. They are joined by Facebook investors Peter Thiel and Yuri Milner, as well as co-founders Eduardo Saverin and Dustin Moskowitz, who is the youngest person on the list at 26. IKEA founder Ingvar Kamprad was the biggest loser, down $17 billion to $6 billion. He fell from the 11th spot to 162 and was unusual amongst the billionaires in seeing his wealth decrease. The collective wealth of billionaires on the list also hit a new record of $4.5 trillion. Welcome to the world of science. How man lost his penile spines? Scientists believe men once had a small spine on their genitalia, such as those found in chimpanzees, cats, and mice. Analysis of the genomes of humans, chimpanzees, and macaques indicates that a DNA sequence thought to play a role in the production of these spines have been deleted in humans, but has been preserved in other primates. It suggests that another genetic deletion may have led to the expansion of specific regions of human brain. The study is in the Journal of Nature. The researchers at Stanford, Georgia, and Pennsylvania State Universities in the US wanted to trace evolutionary changes in human DNA. They compared the human genome with those of the chimpanzee and macaque and came out with 510 stretches of the DNA that have been conserved in our primate relatives but deleted in humans. Nearly all these DNA regions appear to play a regulatory role in the function of nearby genes. The researchers then focused on two deletions, linking one to penile spines and another to the growth of specific areas of the brain. They then tested the effects of the deleted sequences in human skin and neural tissues and found further evidence to support their claims. "We are trying to find the molecular basis of being human," said Professor David Kingsley of Stanford University, one of the authors of the study. That's really ambitious goal, but we live at this unique time where we have the complete genome sequence of ourselves and our closest relatives. So you can systematically go through and find the ways that we differ from other organisms. And in sport, Serena Williams still has blood clots. Serena Williams said she still had blood clots in her lung but hoped to return to tennis this summer. Williams, speaking on Today's Show for Los Angeles, called her medical situation the scariest moment in my life. Treating the clots required Williams to inject herself twice a day with blood thinner. She said she would be back in the hospital on February 28 because of a large hematoma on her stomach that has to be removed. Comebacks have been as emblematic of Williams' tennis career as ferocious grunts of wardrobe changes, major injuries, Hollywood distractions, and the murder of her half-sister Yetunde in 2003. She has overcome them all. But returning to dominance in tennis after recent events may represent her the greatest challenge. Williams had been recovering from the 2 foot surgeries and spending months with limited mobility. She now has to recover from and manage the risk of the pulmonary embolism. And before we close today's bulletin of news analysis, let's have a recap of the main points. Qaddafi Forces Renew Attacks on Rebels. Gaddafi Forces beat up BBC team. Revolts raise fear of migration in Europe. Tibet's exiled Dalai Lama to devolve political role. Yemen President Saleh announces parliamentary system. Wisconsin Republicans pass public sector union curbs. And there we end today's bulletin of news analysis. Be with us in the coming weeks to thank you